Welcome back. FTX executive Ryan Salem turning on Sam Bankman-Fried, the former high-level employee, tipping off Bahamian officials, about alleged improper payments to Alameda Research. Joining us right now is TRM Labs general counsel, Sujit Raman. TRM Labs is a blockchain company that detects and investigates crypto-related fraud and financial crime. Sujit, it's good to have you this morning. What is your reaction to all of this and what we've heard so far about this collapse?
Yeah, very interesting news, Maria. Thanks for having me. You know, I think we're going to be seeing more information coming out as time goes on. The information that you're talking about became public yesterday through court filings, and it appears that folks who were working with Mr. Bankman-Fried had notified regulators and investigators in the Bahamas as the fraud was becoming public. So clearly there were investigations going on in the Bahamas. There have been obviously investigations going on here in the United States. Charges have been brought. So as we see these parallel investigations play out, it'll be very interesting to see what more information comes out over time.
I mean, do you think any of these investors will be made whole? Will anybody get their money back? I mean, the charges found at the end of the indictment allege that SBF, Sam Bankman-Fried, and his co-conspirators illicitly contributed millions of stolen dollars to federal political candidates through Alameda Research in advance of the 2022 elections. I mean, this money was stolen. Politicians have yet to say anything about what they're going to do now, but all of these people got money from Sam Bankman-Fried and his, colleagues, and that money was stolen.
That's absolutely right, Maria. And you know what's really interesting, that hasn't been reported much yet. A lot of this money came in from foreign people, foreign sort of retail users. And so what we've essentially seeing now is the influence of foreign money on U.S. domestic political elections. So I think it is going to be very difficult for much of this money to be clawed back. That's certainly what the new management at FTX will be focused on. It's what the bankruptcy court will be focused on. I think there will be efforts to claw back funds, but, you know, are people going to be made whole? I think it's highly unlikely, at least at 100%. But I do suspect that there's going to be very hard efforts made to try to claw back that money.
Yeah, exactly. And so far, none of these politicians have said anything. What stands out to you most about this case?
Well, what's really interesting is what you just talked about, Maria. The political contributions, you know, there aren't a lot of details in the indictment. I think part of that is because the government is probably still developing its case. Part of it is that, you know, the U.S. had to file charges essentially to satisfy the extradition treaty with the Bahamas. And so there are also certain limitations of what they might have alleged in the indictment. But I think we're going to be seeing more information coming out over the next few weeks and months. I think people will be very interested to know who Mr. Bankman-Fried's conspirators were. The indictment here in the United States talks about conspirators. Clearly, there were other people involved who had criminal knowledge, who had criminal intent, and where was the money going? I think those are all unanswered questions at this moment, but hopefully we'll get more transparency over time.
So do you think they'll be able to prove criminal intent?
Well, that's what a lot of the evidence will be, right? The government, I'm sure, is combing through emails, through text messages. There might be human cooperators who've come in an effort to either avoid criminal liability or to try to minimize their criminal liability. So I suspect it's a very, very active investigation. It has been for the past month, and I think it's only going to kickstart into higher gear now.
Yeah, but I mean, how horrible to basically get in front of his on-the-record, under-oath testimony. I mean, Sujit, let's face it, the Democrats run the Financial Services Committee, and he was supposed to testify this week under oath. What prosecutor would not want their subject to testify under oath? But the Democrats who run the committee made sure he was arrested before he could actually go under oath and talk about all that money that they received.
I will say, Maria, it's a little bit unusual. I think any prosecutor who's about to prosecute a case, I was a former prosecutor, I served in the Justice Department for many, many years. Typically, if somebody you're investigating is about to make a statement, and particularly a statement under oath, you want him to make that statement, right? Because it essentially cabins him in, it ties in his defense, it sort of commits him to a story. And Mr. Bankman-Fried has been talking so much, sometimes in a self-contradictory kind of way, you would think think that that testimony would have ultimately been helpful to prosecutors. But I also don't want to speculate, Maria. It is hard to say. Mr. Bankman-Fried was in the Bahamas, and again, I don't have any inside information, obviously, but was there a tip that maybe he was looking to leave the jurisdiction to a jurisdiction where the United States does not have an extradition treaty? We just don't know. So it's a little bit hard to know exactly what was going on in the mind of prosecutors. Also maybe they didn't want to have Mr. Bankman-Fried out there in this penthouse, apartment, sort of freely talking about what he did when everyone knows he's under investigation. So we'll see.
Yep. Sujit, thanks very much. Sujit Raman joining us this morning. We appreciate it.